room tonight. My name is Amali, and I'm the events director at Books Are Magic, which, if you don't know, is a wonderful little indie bookstore just a few blocks away from here. We are so excited to be hosting tonight's event, but before we officially get started, I just have a few housekeeping notes to get out of the way. First, of course, I want to give a huge thank you to Sam for letting us use their beautiful
No,
space.
they're already signed.
Right?
And I'm going to disappear and hide back here, and a few friends will come back.
I highly recommend you do. If you need to use a restroom, you can point there through the doors on my right, your left, in the far corner of the next room. You can see signs. And lastly, I know you all picked up a copy of Good Things when you purchased your ticket, but in case you didn't, or if you want another, we've got plenty of additional copies available for purchase at the table where you checked in. There will not be a signing line tonight after the talk, but Samin graciously pre-signed all the copies of Good Things that we have.
Wow, I got a round of applause for that.
Yeah. I mean, I was there when you were doing that.
It's true. It was gnarly.
Yeah.
We also have some unsigned copies of Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat. If you don't have that book yet, I don't know what you're doing here, but if you need one, then you can buy a copy of that as well. Okay, now let's get into this. Good Things is full to the brim of exactly that. Recipes overflowing with Samin's signature creativity, warmth, joy, and technique. These are dishes that are meant to be classics, shared with friends, passed down through family, and savored bite by bite. Samin Nosrat is a cook, teacher, and author of James Beard Award-winning #1 New York Times bestseller, Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat. She was named one of Time's 100 most influential people in the world and Chef of the Year by Eater. She's the co-host of Home Cooking Podcast and the host of the Netflix original documentary series based on her first cookbook. She lives in Oakland, California, and a fun fact, she was the first ever author to do a drop-in signing at Books Are Magic when we opened in 2017. So this is and tonight, Max Linsky joins Samin in conversation. Max is a founding partner at
What an honor.
Years in the making. Yesterday, the Good Morning America guy was like, "So, who's this guy? Like, why are you talking to him?" I was like, "Oh,
Just looking guys.
we're staying down at the one hotel. We walked by Pineapple Street. I was like, Ebony, this is the Pineapple Street." Hi. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for giving us your precious time.
Hi, everybody. This is the first time that anyone has thought it was a good idea for me to be in the front of a church. I'm not sure it doesn't feel quite right, but what an amazing place. I have a thing before we start, and one thing I should tell you guys just to sort of like warn you in advance, this is a curious choice for Samin to ask me to do this. I can guarantee you that I am the worst cook in this entire room. I don't know why you would bring me here to ask you questions, except I think there's a chance that you wanted me to ask you existential questions and not food questions. So I've got a lot of those and some food ones too. But before we start, I just wanted to say that this morning, I was thinking about doing this, I looked through our text messages, and I hope it's okay to share it in the book too. There's some texts from a couple of years ago in which you were talking about feeling really stuck and really unsure of what you were going to do next, and just generally very sad. And then there are texts from, like, I don't know, a year later maybe, that say like, starting to figure something out. There's like a long road ahead, but like I'm starting to be able to see something on the other side. And then maybe like a year after that, there's a text that's like, I have something I think I might want to show you soon. And then after that, there's the book. Also, throughout that whole time, a like superpower, magic thing that this person knows how to do is like text you at the exact right time. I've gotten these like wonderful, sweet, encouraging texts from Samin, like at the exact right moment. I don't know how you do that. But we were standing backstage and Samin was being very nonchalant. I was just on Colbert, whatever, it's fine, this is all nothing. and I don't buy that. I think this is a moment, and I think it's like a really beautiful one for you. And I feel like we are very lucky to be with you on the like night that this book has come out. And I had a lot of access to the journey you've been on to get here. So I have an ask of all of you, because one of the things that Samin writes about in the book so beautifully are these Monday night dinners. And I had the chance to go to one earlier this year. They are so special, and I got some questions for you about it. But I know it's not Monday night. I also know it's not dinner. We have no food. But the point of these Monday night dinners is that who you're with is more important than what you're eating. So to help me honor Samin, even though she thinks this isn't a big deal and not a big moment, I want to mark it anyway. And so as a way of helping me honor this moment for Samin, I was hoping you guys could take like 15 seconds, just turn to the person next to you, introduce yourself, welcome them to Tuesday night dinner with no food. Take 15 seconds, just, I'm not even joking, say hi to each other. That's the point of this. These are your people. Okay. All right. We're going to.
Yesterday, Max was like, what do you want to talk about? And I was like, oh, if you want to ask about food, here's this, this, and this. He's like, how about 50% feelings, 50% food? And I was like, we could do 100% feelings. And now I'm crying.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping to stick in the overlap between the feelings and the food, because I think it's all pretty connected. And that moment did have this, it shared a little bit of the feeling of the Monday night dinner, and which was such a beautiful experience for me that my wife and I are trying to do the same thing, and I need some tips from you on how to do that. But seeing as how this is Tuesday night dinner with no dinner and a couple more people, can you articulate like the feeling that you get from Monday night dinner? What?
I do think it's appropriate when we're in a church, actually, because there is something very holy for us, the people who've created this ritual, which was very much by accident. We were a group of friends. Some people were close for a long time. I was sort of on the outer circle. I knew of this group of friends for over 10 years, but at the sort of point after the pandemic where we could gather again, sort of safely post-vaccine, I was cooking something. It was not that good, in my opinion. And I was lamenting that I would have to then eat it for the next 36 meals by myself. And my friend said, just come over, bring it over, we'll have tacos. And so we turned it into tacos, and then at the end of the meal, they were like, let's do it again. And so we just kept doing it. And so I say that to sort of demonstrate that it was not intentional at the beginning. But then we just kept doing it. And I think the keeping doing it is really important. And over time, it dawned on us all sort of slowly, but all of us, that this was something holy that we were making. I mean, we jokingly say Monday dinner is our religion or our church. And in fact, I had 2 events in the Bay Area before I came, and all the people from Monday dinner came, and the kids came. And the kids were texting me afterward, and they were like, oh, I understand now. Monday dinner, like 42, what's the thing with 42 is the reason for living, from the book, what's the, what's the, yes, yeah. And so Orion was like, 42 is not the answer to existence, like Monday dinner is, and I was like, it's true. And so we're all building something together by being together and being present. And that very much, that sentiment, that feeling is is at the heart of this book, and at what I'm trying to communicate. It's what I've tried really hard to create in this book tour by choosing people I know and love to talk with, because I feel like then if we do a good job, you're all invited into that with us. And we all feel connected and warm and good and part of something which is so necessary, like in this horrible, horrible, difficult time. And in a time when food is, a beautiful sort of thing to gather around, and also an incredible political cudgel that's being used to harm and starve people in Palestine. And so it's just, there's so much coming at us. And so if we can make something small for ourselves, it's like the only way I know how to keep going.
Say you wanted to start something like that.
Mm-hmm.
What would you suggest as like a first step? Because there's something underneath that question, which is like, how do you take a first step when you are feeling stuck or maybe overwhelmed by the world in the way you're talking about? But like, I don't know, how do you take the first step towards building a ritual like that?
I mean, I think vulnerability is a part of it, like expressing the desire to other people. I think finding people who are willing to commit to it seems really important. I did put a rubric in the book for people because it felt very like something about, this is not the first time in my life I've tried to do this. It's just the first time that it works. It's worked. And I've had the thought many times, of course we all do, like gathering around food, it's the most natural thing. Why can't I do that? But I think a lot of the ways that I understood it, or understood elements of it to be, for example, we think of potlucks, or we think of dividing the labor in certain ways, involving things like, well, it should rotate. The location should rotate so someone's not always having the burden of being the host. But actually, there are things that we sort of naturally did, partly like, I don't have children, so I travel to 5 minutes to the people who have children, because it just didn't make sense to make people who have kids put all their kids and their food in the car and come to me. And actually, over time, that has proven to be, I think, key, having the same location, the same time. The more correspondence you remove, the more variables you remove, and you just know it's the same time, same place, same people, then you're not always confirming. There's so much less you have to coordinate. And you also all become familiar with the place. And there's other parts of the effort that are burdens. So hosts, in fact, our hosts don't think of it as a burden at all. And so there are just things that were maybe a little unconventional that have proved to be really powerful. But also, I would say even more than that, we all blocked off the calendar and understand that Monday night is precious and holy. And so we don't plan other stuff on Mondays,
You commit.
Yeah, and yeah.
And how did Monday night dinner impact the way you were thinking about cooking?
it was a gift in a lot of ways because, like I said, I live alone, and there was a built-in sort of semi-diverse group of people. There were kids. Kids are picky. Kids are honest, brutally honest. They do not. They tell you when it's good. So that was kind of like a great sort of testing grounds for me. My friends they're good eaters and pretty good home cooks. Like none of them are professional cooks, but just they had a good sort of like breadth of experience so that I could bring things that I was cooking at home and get very honest feedback from people, and also feedback about like, is this something you would ever make? Like one of the things I kind of joke about in the book is there's a pancake recipe, and I worked on figuring out like what new thing is there to say about pancakes? Nothing. But also like, how do I make, what's my really good pancake? And so I worked on that for a long time. And in the end, I decided to make ricotta pancakes. There's like these very fluffy, light ricotta pancakes. But they involve 3 bowls. You need to dirty 3 bowls. And you have to whip the egg whites. And so my friend Sarah of Monday Dinner was like, I would never make that. Like, that's offensive to me. She's like, 3 bowls and whipping egg whites? Like, never gonna happen. And so I had to ultimately override her, because to me they're worth it. But like, I wrote about it in the head note. I was like, yes, this involves 3 bowls and whipping egg whites, but it's worth it. So there's those ways that their comments and their feedback and their real life experience makes it into the book.
Even though you totally like discarded their feedback.
Yeah, I think
it's nice to hear what people think. You don't listen, but it's nice to hear.
Well, for me, I'm like, I have to weigh it. Like, are they good enough pancakes? Like, they had to be good enough to warrant. But yeah.
Yeah. I have a question about the decision to put recipes in the book.
Oh yeah.
I don't want to use the word like hypocritical.
Yeah, that's how I felt. Yeah.
I don't want to use the word betrayal, but
I do.
You're on the record.
I am on the record.
I've got it here. Yeah. I can read you some quotes.
No, don't.
Well, I'm interested in the choice to do it, and I'm interested in the choice to do it as a writer. Mm-hmm. Like, what did, like, as a form, what did recipes offer you that you needed in this moment? Was there a way you're trying to stretch what they could do? Like, why did you flip-flop so hard?
You're not telling me anything I don't believe about myself. I very much have the entire time felt like a hypocrite. Like, I wrote a book and told the whole world, here's how to cook without recipes. You don't need them, ever. And then and just to give you a little background, this book has gone through many iterations before. It's been 8 years since Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat was published. I set out to make initially a very ambitious sort of philosophical follow-up to Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat that would teach you in the way that Salt, Fat gives you sort of these 4 elements to serve as a compass in the kitchen. This other book was going to be called What to Cook, and it would give you the constraints that all professional cooks naturally sort of navigate and anchor themselves around to decide what to cook in any given place, in any given moment, scenario, for any given group of people. So things like, how much time do you have? What equipment do you have? Are you camping and your only heat source is a campfire? What ingredients do you have, or other resources, or what preferences do people have, or limitations? And as I did the research for that for probably 1.5 years or 2 years, and then I realized I couldn't write that book. It would take me another 20 years, and I kind of just melted under the pressure of it. And I said, I don't want to write a book, take the money back, I'll just go garden. And they said, it's okay, you can write another book. And one of my agents said, I don't know why you make things so difficult for yourself. Like, you don't need to reinvent the genre every time. You could just write a book of recipes. And I got so mad. I was like, have you ever met me? I would never do that. I have written a whole book teaching you how to cook without recipes. And then very shortly after that, I was cooking something very delicious at home, and I thought to myself, wow, if only there were a simple and efficient way to share this with people. And so I kind of realized like a flaw in my thinking. But to answer your question, I think the short answer is I've matured in some ways. I think I've spent now 8 years with something I made in the world, experiencing people's response and reaction to it. I encounter people everywhere I go. They say things to me. I get a fair amount of, wow, salt, fat, acid, heat really changed my life. It changed the way I cook. It made me such a better cook. It made my husband a better cook, so thank you for that. But just as often, if not more often, I hear, wow, I just made your chicken. I love your chicken. I love your lasagna. I love your focaccia. They're the individual things, you know? And also in those intervening years, I had a column at the New York Times Magazine. I think my editor, Claire, who's mad at me, is here in this audience. And I grew up a lot as a recipe writer. Like I view that experience as like a boot camp or a master's degree in recipe writing. When I published Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat, I think I'd probably published 24 recipes. I was not incredibly skilled at it. And now I'm a lot better at it. I'm a lot more comfortable because I've done it so much more in the intervening years. I understand and I have a relationship to what people want, what's useful, what's not, what to leave in, what to leave out. I think there's a lot in common with actually poetry writing. Like so much of recipe writing is about format and structure and constraints. And so if I can view it that way, I think it's very helpful to me. And actually, I've never articulated this before, but also like poetry, there are many different formats and constraints, right? There's like sonnets and limericks and haikus and all these different sort of structures. And I think I was very ready to take advantage of those multiple formats and structures in the book to do the thing that served each type of cooking the best. And so sometimes the classic recipe format of a list of ingredients and a list of steps is the right thing because, you know, that's the type of information and the way the information wants to be presented. Other times I'm telling you a story about going to my next door neighbor's house and watching her cut up carrot sticks and cucumber sticks for her kids and drizzle rice vinegar and salt on it, and this being a revelation for me. Like I call them kid crudités in the book. And it seemed insane to write 6 carrot sticks, 4 cucumber sticks, 1 teaspoon rice vinegar. You know, like, so that one I wrote in a paragraph, right? I told the story. So yet in other ones we did visual, diagrams and stuff like that. So it just, I had to sort of sit with what served the food the best. And ultimately it was about being of service to you. And if that meant for me doing something I find kind of uncomfortable, I'm willing to do that because I want to make the most useful and beautiful thing for you.
Beautiful answer to that question.
Oh, thank you.
I'll just say, I take, it brings me great relief to know that all of that, like, you don't need these recipes just because like you didn't really know how to do them yet.
Yeah.
Like, it just makes me think about some moments where I was like, I'm not going to do that. That idea, though, that it was for the reader, for like all your friends who just got to know each other. How does the mix in the book between the recipes and the sort of essays, the context about Monday dinner or other parts of your life, the sort of like underneath of what you're trying to do in the book, how do those two things talk to each other? And what's what is your hope for the non-recipe parts of this book in terms of the impact that they would have on people?
The non-recipe parts, most of the non-recipe parts, the parts I think we're talking about, are like personal writing about my life and what I've been through. And in these years in between, I have been very down. I've been through a lot of hard stuff. We all have been through a lot of hard stuff. And also, I was basically like an invisible line cook, a brown girl, until I was 37 years old. And then I was suddenly so visible. I was the most visible. everywhere I went, I couldn't hide. Like people loved me, right? Like for 37 years, I just wanted to be seen and valued for what I did. And then I was only being seen and valued for what I did. And that was a really destabilizing and confusing and hard. Good. There's so much good in it. And also really hard and very lonely, because it feels very weird to complain that now you have a best-selling book and a television show. And it wasn't that I needed to complain. I just was going through something I didn't know how to communicate, and I didn't really have anyone around me who had been through anything like that. So it just felt very weird. And also, my whole life, like I said, I just wanted to be acknowledged for what I was doing, because I believed that doing was the way to be loved and valuable and deserve to be. And there I did. I achieved all the greatest things I ever set out to do, and I still had this like core sadness and loneliness in my heart that I don't think I ever I'm therapized enough to know, like, I wasn't consciously trying to solve something in my life by achieving. I just didn't know another way to be in the world other than to achieve. So then to achieve all the things and still be sad and still feel like, wow, I didn't make my parents feel better, or they don't seem to like me anymore, or I still am sad inside and lonely inside. That was confusing to sort of sit there and reflect on. And so I was like, maybe I have to find some other way to be. And I don't remember your original question. Yeah.
You're doing great. What was the way to be? What did you find?
And also during that time, I didn't really want to eat that much, and I definitely didn't want to cook that much, and I didn't feel like I was cooking anything very interesting or good, because also I poured my whole life of cooking information into the first book, so I didn't have that much else to say, and there just wasn't a lot of joy, so I had to sort of shrink everything, from like trying to make the world love me and use the platform to be good for the world. I had to like make the focus of the lens, like the aperture, so small, you know? And I was like, maybe today I can garden. Maybe today I could be nice to this kid who's my neighbor. Maybe today I can eat one small delicious thing. And so everything became about what was in my very immediate path. And that's a really nice way to find beauty and notice. I feel like that's like what poets do. You know, like I feel like poets are like the most masterful noticers of tiny little things. And so I just started collecting tiny little things. And all along through the making of this, and still to my own self now, like I have had to convince and promise myself that it's okay to say these tiny simple things, like that if maybe I find them beautiful and valuable, you will too, even though they feel repetitive. Like if I let my whole brain look at them, I'm like, nobody needs me to tell them again to boil their broccoli in salted water or whatever. Like, but also if you do, it's so good, you know? And so it was just a practice over and over again of like believing that I was enough and what I was making enough. And I will say, Lori Ellen, who's sitting right there, for all of these years, Lori Ellen Pelicano was a little voice in my computer and in my head. She's my recipe tester for over 20 years. We've worked together, and she was constantly bringing me back to myself. And she was like, I would be like, oh, I saw this thing on Instagram, so-and-so's doing this. What if I added this thing to my recipe? She's like, that's not you. That's not what you do. And so it was a constant sort of coming back to me. And having to believe that that's enough, which is hard.
Is there something in there that if you had to say there's like one idea or maybe one recipe that you want people to take away from the book, is there like a single thing? Is there like even like this is like a choose your own adventure. You can go food or you can go feeling. Like, is there a food thing that you want people to take away, or is there a feeling that you want them to leave?
I mean, I've been doing a bunch of like interviews and stuff, and I feel like I've said a few times, and I'm like, oh, maybe this is the message. Is like, I'm just out here lowering standards everywhere. And by that I mean what you have, like you are already enough. What you are making is already enough. We have been sort of conditioned, and I'm part of this. I'm guilty. Like I'm part of the machine that has done this to you. Like to believe that the things that we make and eat at home on a daily basis need to be beautiful for Instagram, need to measure up to what's cooked in a restaurant, need to, taste the very best, be the very best. And they don't. Like it just doesn't. I did survive on quesadillas for my whole life, like, and still be here. And I think like that's my takeaway. That's a big shift in my life in the last 10 years. Has been sort of to understand in a life that has, my whole adult life has been convening around big, beautiful tables covered with big, beautiful food cooked by amazing cooks and sitting there and having these dinners. And only now do I realize, like, I don't actually care anymore what's on the table. I care way, 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 way more what's happening around the table and who is around the table and being present with them. Because there were so many times I was at those tables being not seen. And that's not how I want anyone at my table to feel. And so does it matter if you're eating to-go pizza or empanadas or Andy's mac and cheese? No, because that's an excuse and a way to be together. Can I give you a few tips of how to make those things a little more delicious or simple, better? Yeah, sure. But it's not the be all and end all. So here I am with a recipe book that I'm telling you not to follow. Yeah.
It feels like a very Samin approach to recipes. And that thing you said, I mean, like, I think...
we just spent like half of the summer in ecstasy over peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
It's true. It's true. Samin and I are working on a special secret project. And one of the things that's so fun about this is like, now I just get to ask her all the questions that I haven't been able to ask her because she can't run away because there's all of you here. And here I have a theory, which I've just developed listening to the thing you were saying. I've been trying to think, reading the book and talking this summer and eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, like what is the connective tissue between the recipes and the ideas? And I think what you just said is the answer to the last question I had, which is like, there's this question underneath the book that's basically, what does it mean to live a good life? Mm-hmm. And I think the thing that connects them perhaps is like the book, the recipe for how to do that.
Mm-hmm. I hope.
Is some guidelines
to the best of my ability.
Do you feel like you're living a good life?
I don't think I can answer that in a big way. I think on a daily basis, like, did I do a good job today?
No one's listening. What do you think?
I'm trying. I don't know. I'm trying. Like, I left my house on Sunday. I closed the door to leave on this tour that feels very overwhelming. 28 stops. Like, it's just going to be from now until the end of the year. I have to keep going. And there's so many beautiful parts of it. And it's also really hard. Like, you're often in a place less than 24 hours. It's just very grueling. And so I've had a lot of anxiety about it. And last time it destroyed me. Like, I came home and I fell into depression for like 2 years, So I'm nervous. And I closed the door and I locked it and I walked away and I said a prayer. I was like, it's going to be different this time. And I do believe that. I do believe it is going to be different this time. I think I've done a lot of work in my life to try and ground myself in something so that it is different.
What a beautiful thing. It makes me very happy to hear you say that.
Oh, thank you.
You guys, we have some questions from the audience. They are somewhere up here with me. I dropped them. That's where they are. Okay, here we go. So taken with what you were saying, I dropped the piece of paper. All right, I got some questions for you from our friends. Okay, Lee has a question. Why are all people from the Bay Area obsessed with burritos? Why do they all claim the Bay Area burritos are different and far superior to the rest of the world? If they really are different, how so? And lastly, if you have a specific burrito order, what is it? There's a lot of heat under that question.
Wow. Okay, shots fired. All right. Well, I have like a unique sort of perspective on this because I grew up in San Diego. But so I spent, my until 18 there, and then I've lived from 18 to 45 in Northern California. So I have kind of a two-part California answer. So in San Diego, which is adjacent to northern Mexico, and in northern Mexico, specifically in Sonora, it's a wheat-growing region, and so that's where like flour tortillas, the very specific, like very soft, delicious flour that makes for incredibly sort of like thin, diaphanous tortillas comes from. And so Southern Californian Mexican food is very different than Northern Californian Mexican food. And I'll get into why in a second. And so I grew up eating these like chewy, thin, sort of translucent flour tortillas filled with fillings. My favorite is bean and cheese. And they're small. Like San Diego, like Southern Californian burritos are little. And they come wrapped in paper, not foil. Then you move to Northern California, where actually, even more than the burrito, I feel like the taco is king, and people are crazy about corn tortillas. And because my arrival in Northern California sort of coincided with my, cooking education and everyone's obsession with corn tortillas, I was like, oh, I come from like trashy San Diego, and I don't know anything, and flour tortillas are not real Mexican food, only corn is real Mexican food. And so, and also in San Francisco, in the Mission, there's very much like a religion around these huge, like torpedo-sized burritos that are filled with rice. There's always rice in them, and beans, to like make them really big and solid, and then that sort of creates the structure around which you put all your filling and your toppings. And they're huge. Like, it is kind of crazy to think you eat this thing and then the whole thing is just like sitting in your belly. But people are like religious, and they are good. They're good, especially if you put all the right amount of toppings on them and stuff like that. And so for a long time, I had shame. I had Southern California like flour tortilla burrito shame.
How did you work through that?
I learned. I met maybe during my column for Claire. I'm so sorry, Claire. I met some folks at Sonora Town, which is a taqueria in Los Angeles, run by this amazing couple. And Teo, the chef, he grew up sort of on both sides of the border, and his family is from Sonora. And they, at the time that I interviewed them, would drive back to Sonora every 6 weeks to fill their car with flour. Can you imagine, like, two Latinos crossing the border to fill their car with a white powder and come back to make these amazing tortillas? And that was when I first learned about the tradition of that flour. I was like, oh, this thing, I didn't know there actually is this amazing tradition in Mexico. This isn't something white people in San Diego made up. And so I was like, oh, cool. And then I thought a lot about who I worked with in restaurants. And as you know, a lot of amazing immigrants come work in restaurants with us. And so in Northern California, in the Bay Area, there are so many Mexicans who come from Tepa. And I cannot remember what is the state that Tepa is in. But basically, the regions from which Mexicans tend to immigrate to Northern California are the corn growing and eating regions, as opposed to in Southern California, adjacent to the wheat regions. So I think what happened, and I'm not an expert in the Mission burrito history, but I do think like it's much more of sort of it's farther away from what happens in Mexico and has been sort of like supersized American style. And that is what's happened in Northern California. And it is a religion and people love it. And I also love it. I eat a lot of them. And so my favorite is it's not an original answer. It's a great taqueria in San Francisco called La Taqueria. Literally, if you Google it, it will come up. And they just have fantastic burritos. So yeah, sorry for my really long answer.
That's a great answer.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have time for a couple more? Let's see. Kate wants to know, what's the most surprising thing you've ever eaten or made?
Ooh, eaten. Surprising. Surprising is a funny word. I mean, when we were making my show and we were in Italy, so when you're filming a documentary, it is generally the like philosophy of the way it kind of works is like they just want to capture as much footage as they can so that later they can take that and edit with it and create something magical. Because also like anybody who's, you never know when the magic's going to happen. It's not going to happen in the moments when you're like prepared for the interaction. It's like the little surprising moments when the camera, you don't think the camera's on, or like you're tired, or you sneeze, or you make a funny joke, you know, whatever. And so if we're filming, like I know we're filming, right? And it's also my like, it was my cinematographer's job to be on me. Like if I went somewhere, he followed me. So we're like walking through this market in Liguria, and the camera's on me, and like everyone's, you know, you're in a market, they're just offering you their wares, and you're just eating them, and they're like, you know, it's this thing their family's been making for generations, or producing, or harvesting, or whatever. So like, I will taste anything anyone gives me. I'll eat anything anyone gives me. I don't always, and I will be very nice about it. So we walked past like a seafood, like a fisherman's stall, and they were like, here, eat this raw squid and shrimp that's like was alive moments ago. And I'm like, just like that? Like, you know? And they were like, yeah. And I'm like, okay. And so I like put it in my mouth, and I knew, I was like, I don't know if I can swallow. Like I chewed it and I tried to, I think I did swallow, but I knew I was not gonna make it. So I like ran sort of to the back. I was trying to be polite, but I was like, I gotta get out of here because I gotta spit this out. So I like ran to the back. And then of course, like Luke, my camera guy, is like following me. And I'm like, do not follow me, do not follow me. I was like, this cannot be on camera. So it was surprising to eat like a semi-live shrimp, I guess, yeah. Like, no fun. Like, I know people, I'm just not like that gonzo adventure eater, you know? That's not my thing.
I mean, I don't know anyone who would want to do that.
Yeah.
All right, we got two more. One is from Ari, who says, every month my cookbook club does a potluck where we split up the recipes from a book, and then at the end, we give superlatives to different recipes.
Oh, cool.
Most likely to cook for a partner's family, most likely to end up as part of our weekly rotation. They're doing good things next month, and Ari wants to know, what's a superlative that you'd like to see the cookbook club give out for your book?
Oh, like most likely to win the drag queen pageant? I don't know. I don't know, but I don't know which recipe that would be. I don't know, like, I don't know. I mean, I feel like, isn't that kind of the joy? Is you get to, I'm guessing you pick the craziest superlatives.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
That's the pleasure.
All right.
Yeah.
Another great answer. I got one more for you,
Okay.
which is I asked some people who know you well what questions I should ask tonight. And our friend Tonya had one suggestion, which is where I was hoping we could end, which is that in the last couple of years, a thing that the people who know you well and love you have come to know is that you have fallen in love.
Mm-hmm.
And Tonya's question that she was curious about is, how has being in love changed you as a cook?
Oh. Well, one of my favorite things about cooking, and this is something I practice, I would say is like the best part of Monday dinner for me. Not the best part. One of the best parts of having a weekly cooking ritual or people to cook for. I have not always had people to cook for in that way. Like, yeah, is I have, like all of you, I live a very chaotic life filled with a lot of screens and phones and thoughts, a lot of thoughts. And I don't always like being in my head, which is where the screen takes me and my thoughts take me. And so cooking, as much as I also like cooking with music on or audiobooks or podcasts or whatever, like cooking and also gardening are sort of the two practices in my life that allow me to leave my head and go into my body. And if I don't, and often I just do it with quiet and by myself in solitude. And it becomes an opportunity to be really present And often when I am cooking, like knowing that people I love are going to eat this, or because it's somebody I love's birthday or they've requested it, that there's a way I get to pour some special sort of energy into that. And I know I'm from California, but like, but it does feel really meaningful, and I feel like they know it. It is received. And I'm not saying the food tastes better. It's not like, I'm just saying like it's an opportunity for me to offer something in this like act that I know will be received by someone I love. So having a wonderful partner, my girlfriend Ebony, she's here, like I get to practice that more often. And also like we eat a lot of burgers. I mean, I'm not like, like it's not all the time happening, but it's nice.
It's nice. Thank you all for coming to Tuesday night dinner without
Yes.
food. And Samin, thank you so much for this book.
Thank you guys for coming. Thank you.
Real good.
Thank you all so much for coming out. Just a quick reminder, you can get your signed copy of Good Things or another one or third after they already checked in.
Okay, let's see. Claire, come back. Let's text. Claire's so mad at me because I was supposed to text her.